Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories. We're overlooking the Peel River tonight. We'll be in both Fort McPherson and Sigachik all of this week. We are so excited to share stories from the communities. Tonight, we'll learn about the Tetlitwichin dancers who travel across the north and beyond and even performed for a prime minister. But we begin with the news. Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories. We begin tonight in the Yukon. The coroner's office is investigating a fire at a remote mining camp near Dawson City. It killed 2 people and injured 5 others on Friday. The fire started at the Brewer Creek gold mine located about 100 kilometers south of Dawson City. 2 seasonal workers from British Columbia, both 20 years old, were fatally injured. 5 others were flown to the Dawson City Community Hospital for medical treatment. The coroner's service is conducting an investigation with help from the Whitehorse Fire Marshal's Office, the Workers' Safety and Compensation Board, and the Dawson City RCMP detachment. The coroner's office says the investigation is in its early stages and the cause of the fire has not yet been determined. Suspicious causes, though, have been ruled out. A trial for the murder of a 17-year-old began today in Yellowknife. Zach Lafferty was charged with second-degree murder 2 years ago after a teenager in Betchacon died of serious injuries. Lafferty was 24 at the time. In the Crown's opening statement, Crown prosecutor Brendan Green says the victim died of a stab wound to the chest. When the RCMP arrived on scene, the victim was still alive and identified Lafferty as the person who stabbed him. An RCMP constable who was a first responder on the scene gave witness testimony today. More testimonies will continue on Tuesday. And Yellowknife RCMP say they're investigating a death on board an international flight. A KLM flight made an emergency landing at Yellowknife Airport on Sunday morning. Police say they received a report that a passenger on the flight was unresponsive. They went to the airport with paramedics, and a 34-year-old woman was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. RCMP say medical professionals on the plane and first responders performed life-saving efforts. The incident is under investigation in partnership with the coroner. To the Yukon now, where it is day 4 of a 31-day territorial election campaign. The rising cost of living is top of mind for many voters. Julian Green takes a look at that issue.
It sickens me.
That's what Steve White thinks about the price tags on Dawson City food. But it's not just food costs that irk him. White says his rent is skyrocketing, his electricity bill too.
They try to gouge people wherever they can.
Yeah.
And that's what's really frustrating me.
The executive director of Safe at Home says the next government can't tackle housing costs but leave out groceries and heating. If it does, she says that could pave the way toward other problems, among them crime and poor health.
When people feel undersupported or devalued or like they don't have a place where they belong, we have to connect the dots and look at it kind of more holistically.
All parties have pledged to combat rising costs of living, whether that's subsidizing electricity rates or clearing more land to build more houses. Still, none have released any platforms. That's expected in the coming weeks. Julian Green, CBC News, Whitehorse.
The government of the Northwest Territories formally responded to an independent review of its handling of the 2023 wildfires last week. In that review, the author recommended that the territory create an emergency management agency separate from municipal and community affairs, or MACA. The NWT rejected that recommendation. And tonight, Luke Carroll has reaction from emergency management experts about that decision.
One of the territory's arguments for not creating a standalone agency is the lack of large-scale emergencies in the winter months, that the team would essentially have an off-season. But for one emergency management specialist, that reasoning doesn't make sense.
You know, there are things that happen in the winter as well. So you have blizzards, you have, ice storms, you have all sorts of situations that can happen.
Norman says a standalone agency is the best option for the territory. And he's not alone in this belief, but there are challenges to establishing one.
So we have seen and we've learned from other provinces that, yes, it is best practice to have a standalone agency, but it is also a challenge to get those resources. And when we talk about resources, we're talking about manpower, getting the skilled staff to be able to staff those standalone offices.
But what does a separate agency actually mean? In the NWT, the Emergency Management Organization is under the Department of Municipal and Community Affairs, so this would involve it being moved out of that department. As for the structure of the agency, there are several options, according to Eric Kennedy. He's an emergency management professor at York University. He says some places, like in Saskatchewan, include firefighters and their emergency management agency. In the NWT, firefighters are under a whole other department, Environment and Climate Change. But Kennedy says creating a separate agency won't just fix the pre-existing issues. He says the expectation of these new organizations are that they come with things like more funding and authority.
But the devil is always in the details, and the question of whether the standalone agency becomes those things is an open and important one. We can achieve those benefits through many different kinds of arrangements, and all of these arrangements are also vulnerable to weakness on communication and collaboration and coordination. And so how it gets implemented is really the critical question.
Kennedy says there's ways that a standalone agency can fix the issues that are highlighted in every emergency, typically around communication and coordination. But it depends on how that agency is implemented and operated. And he says dealing with the causes of those issues is really what's important, no matter what the structure of the emergency management organization is. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
In Nunavut, work is underway to salvage a stranded cargo ship. It ran aground in the Northwest Passage a month ago. The CBC's Mahnur Mubarak has that story.
Refloating operations are set to take place this week to save the Thamesburg. The cargo ship was transporting industrial carbon blocks from Asia to Quebec when it ran aground in early September. You can see here the ship is grounded. It's still in water, but it's unable to move from that location. The company says it's removed around 4,000 tons of cargo from the ship to help with refloating it. David Salisbury is a spokesperson for Royal Wagenburg, the company that owns the ship. He says questions have been raised regarding the onset of winter and the impact if the ship is not refloated before ice forms.
All company resources and energy are currently being dedicated to ensuring the Thamesburg is successfully refloated prior to this window closing.
The ship also needs to be refloated before its damage can be assessed. There are 15 crew members and an ice advisor on board the ship. The company says the crew is safe and in good health. There has been no reported pollution or injuries as a result of the ship becoming stranded so far. The Canadian Coast Guard is also providing support. Sue McLennan is the Regional Director of Response for the Canadian Coast Guard Arctic Region.
The Canadian Coast Guard ship, the Grosier, remains on scene, actively monitoring salvage operations. The vessel is equipped with trained response personnel and environmental response equipment, ready to assist if needed.
TNT Salvage has been contracted to help remove the ship. Royal Wagenburg says when the vessel is refloated, it will be taken to a port, the location of which has not been determined yet. The company says the cause of the grounding has not been determined as well, and an investigation is still ongoing. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Researchers say they've found evidence of the first invasive barnacle species in Nunavut's water. It's a discovery they believe is a result of climate change. Samuel Watt reports.
Pictured here are 3D models of barnacles. On the left is one native to Nunavut. The one on the right is not. Researchers haven't seen the non-native barnacle with their own eyes, but they believe they exist based on the environmental DNA they scooped from the region's waters.
I basically am collecting any shed skin cells, any poo, anything that organisms are putting into the environment.
The British Antarctic Survey's Betty Boys scoured these locations for the invasive barnacles. They were found in 10 different spots. Boyce believes the barnacles are likely latching onto ships and cruising into the Arctic.
Boats are actually a really appealing place for them to stick onto because as the water flushes through as the boat's moving, they get extra food from this.
The Arctic is warming up nearly 4 times faster than anywhere else on Earth, according to several studies, so more shipping routes are opening up. Boyce's study states shipping traffic in parts of Arctic Canada has increased by more than 250% over the past 3 decades. The team also examined the waters near Arcfiat, which doesn't have much shipping activity. No barnacles were found there, but Kumavik Society's Jimmy Kamenik Makpa says he's seen bats and wasps flying up.
Some of them probably going to the ships, or some of them running away from the smoke from the forest fires.
Fisheries and Oceans Canada says it appreciates the study's findings, but it says more monitoring and visual confirmation is required. That's finer nor for Shelley Alvarum at Ikavik, a non-profit which also worked on the study, but she says it's important Canada empowers Inuit communities to set their own research priorities.
There's nothing that compares to the eyes of people who are out on the land and out on the water, and they know what's normal.
As shipping routes continue to open up, Alvarum urges the Canadian government to be proactive on regulating vessels. Transport Canada says it has several regulations in place. Right now, it says it's working on legally binding measures to address the buildup of organisms in the ocean. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Yellowknife.
An economist is praising a recent financial decision by the Yukon government. Last month, the territory announced a $200 million bond issuance. The bond will see nearly 30 investors lend money to the government for a 10-year period in exchange for regular interest payments and the return of the original sum at the end. The territory will pay a 3.8% interest rate. The loan will be used to fund healthcare initiatives, infrastructure projects, and to support emergency response to climate change. A UBC professor says the bond gives the government a cash influx without having to raise taxes, and the territory will likely not have issues paying it back.
We look at numbers as debt to GDP ratio in that perspective. Over there, Yukon is doing fantastic compared to other provinces and similar smaller size provinces and territories. For example, if you look at BC, Ontario, their debt to GDP ratio is anywhere from 27% to 38%. And if you look at Newfoundland and Labrador and then other areas, there are also about 35 to 40% debt to GDP ratio. But Yukon, it stays at 16% at this point.
A debt to GDP ratio looks at how much money a government owes compared to the size of its economy. Starting Friday, elders in Iqaluit will be able to use an accessible van to get around the community. Vans for 5 Nunavut communities were first announced last fall. The territorial government spent $1 million to purchase them, but they've been parked for a year. A Nunavut nonprofit was tasked with operating the vans. It says operating costs led to the delay.
The wages and the gas and the annual maintenance and everything, like we're talking about like in between $500,000 and $700,000 per year to operate the van, like one van.
Boulay says the nonprofit is temporarily funding the project along with Caribou Cabs and Arctic Training. Boulay says it's costing $10,000 for 12 days of van service. Arctic Training will train the van's drivers. The company's owner says the cost is worth it to get visibility for a much-needed service.
The intent of where we're at now is to continue to build momentum, especially with the election coming up.
The Iqaluit van will operate Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays throughout the month of October. Fort Smith growers say NWT permit rules are placing unnecessary barriers on selling fresh produce. Some say it's making it harder for small farmers to contribute to food security in the north. Carla Ulrich has that story.
For years, Fort Smith growers were told they didn't need permits to sell vegetables at the local farmers market. That changed just as harvest season began this fall. Helena Katz says she was blindsided after learning she needed to apply for and pay for an NWT food establishment permit just to sell zucchini, kale, and Swiss chard from her Flat World alpaca farm. The new cost adds up to more than $100 before even selling a single vegetable. Katz says it feels backwards, especially when residents are being encouraged to grow and buy locally.
In our community, people are really aware of the need for locally grown food, and people know all of the growers. You know, they know who they're buying from, and in some cases they've actually been out to our places as well. So they really do know not just who they're buying from, but they also knew where their food is being harvested, and it's being grown.
Katz says because of the confusion, permit fees were waived this year by the territorial government. But she says it's not enough for the government to waive permit fees for small producers. She wants the regulations themselves changed.
In Alberta, a small producer like us does not need a food permit to sell fresh produce. We need to have regulations in the NWT that are aligned with the ones in Alberta, because there's not really any reason why somebody who is a small producer is asked to get a permit. You know, we're not doing anything to our produce. We're literally harvesting it, putting it in a basket, and bringing it to the market.
Katz says she hopes the rules will be changed before next season, and farmers in the north can continue to sell local food without the added red tape. The territorial government did not respond to a request for comment on the permitting by deadline. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations and the MP for the Northwest Territories has tabled her first piece of legislation. It calls for the appointment of a commissioner for modern treaty implementation. Minister Rebecca Alty says it would be an oversight measure that opens the door for more engagement with partners, and that ultimately Parliament has the legal responsibility to implement treaties.
It has the authority to require departments to provide information. And so it is about really being objective, being impartial, providing their expert knowledge, and reporting directly to Parliament.
The legislation has been in the works for decades. The commissioner would report directly to Parliament and hold the government accountable on areas like the progress and the effectiveness of modern treaties. Alty says the position would not affect negotiations.
The future is everything. Stories of incredible ingenuity, dedication, and some extraordinary teamwork. This is parenthood.
Take a voyage with me to the vast, remote, most extreme place on Earth.
For many, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Where the effects of climate change are intensifying.
The poles are a very rapidly changing place.
And geopolitical cracks threaten peace and stability.
Do you think there's a security concern?
I definitely do.
Experience the historic all-Canadian mission. CBC in Antarctica. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Want to get the most out of CBC News? Use the app or cbcnews.ca for live breaking news on the stories that matter to you. Whether it's local, national, or around the world, turn to CBC News.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
All of this, just single-detached homes?
Yes.
What do we know? I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang.
Although the NBA currently is flooded with Canadian players, this was not a reality.
A new immigration law.
This story, it's directly tied to all those families who made a brave choice to come to this country.
My favorite word.
Tariff.
How seriously are you taking this threat?
It's the uncertainty that's the biggest issue.
Canada, we got you.
Elbows up!
Hello, I'm Paul Andrew. Here's George Tuckaroo with the news.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Carol Morin.
That's Northbeat for tonight. I'm Nadira Bag. Good night.
Good evening. I'm Randy Henderson. We start in the Northwest Territories.
Good evening. I'm Kate Kyle.
I'm Hillary Bird.
Shannon Scott.
Juanita Taylor, and this is Northbeat.
A chance to travel, share culture, and build family. That's what a dance group here in Fort McPherson offers the young people who take part. The Tetlitquitchin dancers have performed across the north and beyond. They bring fiddlers, so the music is live, and sometimes the audience even gets up to dance with them. Marion Cooey and Kathy Narasu run the group, and I spoke earlier with Kathy. Tell me what the dance group does and who's in it.
They do all sorts of dances. The old time dance they do Red River Jig. That's all is the start off. They do waltzing. They do two-step, an old time dance which is called double jig, and rabbit dance and square dance. Mm-hmm.
And what does the group do? They perform at Midway. Where else do they travel and perform?
They perform in our hometown here in Fort McPherson. They perform for the Midway Lake Music Festival, and they get invited out to the Satur region. They were invited to Delaney, to Old Crow, and they even perform for the Prime Minister. Even Prime Minister Trudeau danced with our dancers. So we're just all over the place. We even went to Arctic Winter Games that was in Fort McMurray, and they also performed for 500 people. And I had to stand right on a stage, and there was all these people up there, and it was nothing for us. Yeah, so that's pretty good.
You guys are old hats at it now. How long has the group been going for, and who's a part of it? Like, who are the dancers? Introduce me to them as well.
They were a part of us since 2015. They were just maybe 10, 11, 12, and now there's Bryson or Sue, who went to college. There's Donovan Cooey Greenland, who's our leader, and he just graduated last year. His brother Xander, Connor Charlie, Edwin Cooey, Edwin Key, I'm sorry, and for the girls was Janelle Vinelsi, Jaylyn Vinelsi, Jaslyn Ursu, Jolyn Vitraqua, and Rihanna Firth. And they were with us from the start, and they're still with us.
Yeah, tell me how they got involved and why they wanted to be a part of this group.
Marion, the organizer, she got this group together, and she thought she'll put a dance group together, get something for the youth out there. And so these ones came along, and 2 left us because they were too shy. And these ones just stayed with us from the start, and they're still with us today.
What's that relationship like that you guys have been with them for so long? So describe how you all interact and what it's like to be a group like this that's so tight-knit.
Okay, so we're just like a family. We became a family. And when we travel around and we're in a waiting room waiting to perform, we'll put on some music, and me and Marion will get up and start dancing. Then they'll all join us. And when we travel to other communities, they give us a B&B. And there's groups from Fort Yukon and from Fort Good Hope. They put us in a big log building in Old Crow. And so one day, me and Marion, we make sure all our kids are home. So one day, me and Marion went walking home, and we hear drums. And I told her, geez, somebody's having big drum dance. So as we got closer to our place, we walked in. Here, all the Good Hope and Fort Yukon and our dancers were all in there, and they were having drum dance in our place, which was okay with us. So what we did was we joined them. We drum danced, and we were singing with guitar, and we just did. We just joined them, and we just had fun with them. That's what we do all the time.
It sounds like it's not only the group that's quite close-knit, but also the communities that you travel to, that you perform in, that would also have ties to these dances, they're responding really well too and saying, hey, this is also a part of our heritage.
Yeah, yeah, they just join us and they want to learn some of our dances too. So we show them how to do a certain dance, and they just get right in there with us, and then we go into drum dancing and marrying with sing the round dance, and we'll just go in a big circle and sorry, we'll just go in a big circle and just do a big round dance, and she's really good at that.
It sounds like a lot of fun, but I imagine it's also quite meaningful to give kids such a healthy activity that connects them to their culture and their past. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, they really enjoy their dancing because they get a lot of encouragement from their parents, their grandparents, and the community. And from doing these dances, they show us a lot of respect. They know how to respect me and Marion and the people they're around, and they're always helpful in what we do. And if there's a culture day that we attend, they're going to be involved with it. So anything that's culture that we're into, they'll get into it also. Yeah, so they're really be into it.
Do you have a message for any kids in Fort McPherson or maybe in other communities that will see these dances and think, oh, maybe I want to do that, maybe I want to try, maybe they're feeling a bit shy?
Yeah, well, at first I was shy, and then you don't have to be shy. Just get out there and dance. And I was shy to dance, and I could just go on the floor and just dance away. So you don't have to be shy. Just come out and dance. And if you need help, myself or Marion can help. And you can just contact us, and we'll be glad to help you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, and good to meet you.
You are looking at the fish camp in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories. We are going to speak to some people there. We'll have that interview for you later this week. And we leave you tonight with more images along the Peel River where we are. And also we will take you to Sigachik. We'll be hosting the show live there this week as well. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.